Hi, Comet. My name is Bulin Bhat, and I'm from the Information Technology. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Technology Experience and Innovation. Today, we're going to talk about prompt engineering, and specifically prompt engineering and Comet AI. Prompt engineering is nothing more than just writing and the way we communicate with AI about what our needs are, what we want it to do. So, with that, let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about are tokens. In AI, tokens are just units that the data units of data that the model uses to process information. So in this example, I wrote, "My name is Bullen, period, space, and I work for you at UT Dallas, period. Thanks!" Exclamation mark. And as you can see from this example, there's actually a quite a few things going on. So when AI reads that sentence, it breaks it down into tokens. And as you notice, punctuations like period also count as a single token. Really large words could be broken up into multiple tokens, and words like please and things like that are also they also count as tokens. So why are tokens important? As you know, in Comet AI, we've allocated you a certain amount of dollars that everybody gets when they get access to Comet AI. And the way that we're billed from these models are by our token usage. So if we use a lot of tokens, we get billed a lot of dollars. And so sometimes in AI, it's important to understand exactly what you're writing and how you're writing it. A couple of punctuations here and there are not going to make a difference. And I'm not saying to go away from grammar, but tokens are important to understand because that's how we're billed back for the usage of AI. Okay, now that we understand a little bit about token, let's talk about prompt engineering. And really, at the core of prompts, it's about what we want to get out of it. So having clarity and specificity is super important. Making sure that the AI understands exactly what you're looking for, how you're looking for it, and what role you want it to take. So, and what I mean by that is like saying that, hey, you are an expert at speech writing. You are an expert at analyzing cars, right? You have 30 years of experience with X, Y, and Z. Giving that context to AI is going to help AI understand what type of output you're looking for from it, right? So if I say, hey, you're a undergrad researcher versus you're a grad researcher versus you're a researcher with 30 years of experience, it's going to understand the differences between all of those and provide an output that's written in the style with the knowledge of somebody at that level. So context helps. Using negative prompts is also super important because negative prompts help it avoid things that we don't want it to do, right? So, for example, if I was having AI generate a report on Apple computers, I would give it a negative prompt and say, "Hey, make sure you're talking about Apple Corporation instead of Apple the fruit," and that will help AI understand. Hey, we're talking about the computer corporation Apple and not the fruit Apple. And there's lots of different types of prompts, right? There's informational ones, instructional ones, creative ones, and role specific ones like we just talked about. And so context and iteration, also providing context for refining your prompt, right? Iteration just means have a conversation with AI, talk to it. Don't just accept the first answer it gives you as the final. You can massage it. You can get more details out of it. You can get it to write in a different format than the way it wrote it in. Maybe it wrote in paragraph, but you want a table. So having iteration really helps with that. So having said that, a lot of different companies in the industry use something called a CRISP model, and that really breaks down the importance of different sections of your prompts. And we added a CRISP with an I for iteration, and we'll talk about that. So the first one is context. What you are trying to achieve is, again, very critical. What your situation is, giving it background information, right? And who the audience is. Like, I'm writing for a bunch of undergraduates. I'm writing for graduate students. I'm writing for a lot of professors. I'm writing for researchers in XYZ lab. Giving that context really helps it. Again, role we already talked about, but telling AI what you want it to be specifically and with maybe how many years of experience it has, and in what industry it works in. All those types of roles help it understand what its role is. Then after that, we've moved on to instruction. This is your what and why, and any specific requirements that you have for AI to achieve your goal. So in this case, you're going to say, hey, I want you to do this. Then I want you to analyze the information I posted. Then I want you to create a table and things like that. And I'll give you an example of this to make sense. So, and then the next one is specifications, being clear about how you want your format to be, maybe how many paragraphs you want it to stay under, or how many bulleted lists you want it to create. You want to create a comparative chart, something like that. Also, your tone that you want the output to be in. Do you want it professional? Do you want it to be do you want it to be technical? Do you want it to be elegant? Do you want it to be comic? Right? All of those things help. And then performance, you set the quality of the standard and tell it what success looks like. Hey, a successful paper would have this, or give it metrics that you want it to hit. Negative prompts would be a great place in performance. And then also feeding an example of something that you know is really good. So maybe there's an online article or an online table or something that you can upload to AI and say, here, this is a really good example of an output. I want you to format your answer in the way that this output is. And again, the iteration part is super important. Once it gives you its output, don't just accept that. Talk to it, massage it. Now, be careful with iteration, because if you keep going back and forth, there is a chance of memory loss. And that's when we get hallucinations and when AI starts just creating random stuff because it forgot the context of the very initial part of the conversation. So use iteration, but don't go too deep into it, just because there are limitations to it. Okay, so here's an example of a crisp format. This one was written by one of my colleagues, and he said, compare the performance, maintenance costs, and long-term reliability of a BMW M440i convertible and Mercedes-Benz CLE 53 AMG convertible in a markdown table. Include at least 3 key specs for each and note any standout feature or drawbacks. Now, this is a pretty good prompt on its own. And honestly, AI probably would have given a good answer for this one, but he converted it into the crisp format, and so in context, he gave it more context, and he said, "I'm deciding between 2 luxury convertibles for purchase next year. I'm a working professional in my mid-30s." So again, he's giving background as to who he is in order for AI to provide that output in a way that is going to resonate with him. And my audience is an online car enthusiast forum. And then he gave it a role and said, hey, AI, you act as a senior automotive analyst with over 15 years of experience reviewing luxury vehicles from major auto publications. So it gave him a very specific role as to who it is, who it works for, how long of experience it has. And then he gave him some instructions, provide a detailed, objective comparison of BMW M440i convertible and the Mercedes-Benz CLE 53 AMG convertible. Focus on factors like performance, maintenance, costs, long-term reliability, and standout feature. The goal is to support my decision making. So again, he gave really good instructions and what the goal was. And then specification, he put present findings in a markdown table, followed by 2 concise, well-structured paragraphs summarizing the key advantages and drawbacks of each model. And what that's going to do is give AI exactly what it needs to formulate that output. And then in performance, he said, hey, here's what success looks like for me. It's clearly organized, accurate, and highlights the practical implications for a list of 2 luxury car buyer. Avoid brand bias. So he's giving it that, hey, don't favor one over the other, because AI tends to do that just based on the information it has. And don't use technical jargon. He's not into that. So only cite respectable automotive authorities. And then in the example, he gave an example of what a good table would look like. So this is a crisp format, and it's excellent. And even in this case, so if you just write a simple prompt like he did at the very top, and then give that to AI and say, hey, convert this into a crisp format. It'll do that for you. And it'll put all this into the crisp format, and then you can massage it and add details to it so you don't have to write the whole thing. And that's what AI is great for. It really helps you figure some of these things out. Okay, so having this context, let's go into a little bit of our Comet AI and show you how you can do this in Comet AI. So when you land into the Comet AI, you're probably gonna see a screen like this. And Amanda's previous video, you kind of went through what the anatomy of Comet AI is and how to find everything. So I won't go into details on that. But the first thing you have here is a bunch of different models, right? You don't need to use the most expensive models to achieve what you want to achieve. Like if I was going to do an example of a simple speech writing, I don't necessarily have to. I don't necessarily have to use an incredibly complex model. And let me show you a couple of articles here. So the first one we have is in our knowledge base, and it's called Comet AI Model Comparison and Analysis. And in the very beginning, this top section of it, it goes through each one of the models that you have available to you, and we're adding more all the time. And it talks about what the optimal use case for each one of those are. But if you scroll down a little bit further, there's two more tables that I want to bring your attention to. This comprehensive table at a very high level shows you how many billion parameters the model is, and what the key strengths of each model are: speed and efficiency on this one, on the default one, balanced performance, and it also tells you what it's really best for, like high volume task, research analysis. There's some STEM education one you can use O3 Mini for. So it's really good, and it also tells you what the training date cutoff for it is. That means it's not going to have any information past August 2023. Or in this case, October 2024. Again, we're adding new models with more context, so that should be coming for you soon. And then the second table is some higher education use cases. So if you're writing a research paper analysis, you could use one of these models. It also gives you the reasoning form. Easy writing and feedback, you could use Cloud 3.5, GPT 4.1. You know, ChatGPT is great for most things, but Cloud is also excellent for other things, right? Like especially for STEM related things or programming, writing code, things like that. Like if you're building an interactive tutoring program right here, you could use Cloud 3.5 Haiku or O3 Mini, and they would both do great for it. So, and then there's also a model selection guideline for academic institutions. So you can kind of go through this, and I'll put a link to this below, so you'll have access to these knowledge base articles too. And then the other one I want to show you is our prompt guide. So this one is for Copilot, but you can 100% use it. These videos, they're great. And they're very applicable to Comet AI as well. And we also created some sample prompts for faculty. Here's some use case, like if you're lecture planning, you could say, I would appreciate some ideas on interactive activities to include in my, name of your lecture, and could you suggest a few? So there's some ideas to help you generate some content. And again, you can have AI convert these prompts into crisp format so that you can get the best results. And then here's an example of the crisp format again. And then here's a sample prompt for staff also. So over here, these were for faculty. And there's some staff ones, like if you're doing event planning, policy updates, things like that, AI can help you with any of those things. So we have some really good examples on our website. Again, I'll link to this as well. But all of these are really good. We're going to keep adding to these, so this is not going to be static. Just come back and check for updates on this page, and we'll have some great content in here for you too. And so let's go back into Comet AI, and let's just start with this our default Cloud 3 Haiku model. And let's say you're writing a speech, and you're the vice president of information technology, for example. You could do that, and if we just said let's just use our crisp model to generate one. So first one is context, and what we'll write here is we'll just write a simple prompt first, and then we'll work our way to that. So for you are a speech an experienced speechwriter with 10 years of experience. Your job is to write a speech for a VP of information technology at a major university. And you could write UT Dallas. Comet AI is private, so our content doesn't go out. So you can put UTD specific things into Comet AI. And then again, now we gave it a role. We gave it some context. We're gonna give it some instruction, like in our previous example we saw. So write a speech that will be given by the VP to a specific audience. Ask these questions on the speech. One, who is the audience? Two, what, and this should probably be one, but what is the topic that we want to discuss? Three, what should the tone be? And maybe let's add a fourth that, what are the VP's personal point of views on this? What are the VP's personal points of views? And then we're gonna go in and write some specification. And so we'll say this speech should be elegant and comic. Maybe not. This speech should be elegant and professional because it's coming from a VP. So if it was coming from me, it'd maybe be comic, but since it's coming from a VP, let's make it professional. And be tailored to the audience. The speech should be no more than 3 minutes, and we're hardwiring all this into it. And then let's give it an example. A great example of a speech would be, and you can write anything you want. You could put an example here from a speech that you really liked, or you could say something general like, a great example of a speech would be a recent speech from any of the past 5 presidents of the United States. And I'm going to hit enter, and you'll see that Comet AI will start doing its own thing. This is a smaller model, so it shouldn't take too long. But in theory, what it should do is ask us some questions and then generate the speech for us. So that's exactly what it's doing. Okay, so in this case, it's saying the audience for the speech is faculty, staff, and students of a university. The topic to be discussed is university's new information technology and strategy. So, so instead of asking us these questions, it just randomly made them up. You could use a better model to have better outcome, but I'll show you how to change this in here in a second. The VP's personal points of view that should come across the speech are a deep commitment to leveraging technology to enhance it. So it generated a speech that you can copy. It is my fellow faculty, staff, and students. It is with great enthusiasm that I stand before you today to share your university's bold new vision for future of information technology. For too long, technology has been a mere tool. So it generated this speech. Okay, so this is kind of a little bit of a dumber model, but and that is a technical term. But now I want to show you how to use the CRISP model to set up a prompt that, let's say we were going to be writing these types of speeches all the time. What would that look like? And I went ahead and already created one, so we'll look at it. But if you click on the top right over here for assistant, it'll bring up this right here. And you can name your assistant, you can give it a description, and I'll show you here in a second just what that looks like and some instructions. So this is where you would put your CRISP format and write it out. If you had some documents that like examples of really good speeches from this VP, you would upload them here, and then there's some advanced options, and then you would hit save. And I'm gonna go ahead and open this one up that I just wrote. So I called it Speechwriter Assistant. The description: this is a speechwriter for VP of Information Technology. I'm a speechwriter. And this is the instruction I gave it, right? So again, same thing. I'm a speechwriter for VP of Information Technology at a major university. You are a seasoned speechwriter with 20 years of experience writing speeches for C-level executives. For every speech you write, please clarify these points. One, ask about the context. Two, ask of what type of audience the speech is for. Two, ask what the VP's views on the topics are. And finally, what should the tone of the speech be? So again, same thing that we just did. And I'll hit save on that one. And then the way you call on these AI agents or assistants is by creating a new chat. And then under prompts, you're going to see assistants, and we'll open up the speechwriter one that we just built. Again, it's using the same Cloud 3 haiku. I'm going to say, help me write a speech about importance of students and technology, right? And so you can see that it did the add speech writer assistant. So now it's calling on it, and it said, certainly, let me ask you a few questions. So this is what we were looking for. What is the content of the speech? So we're going to give it some answers. So importance of students in higher education technology. Two, who is the target audience? Let's say the target audience is students. We're writing this speech to be given to students. And three, what are the VP's view of importance of students in technology? We're going to say students are the paramount of higher education and the reason we do what we do. Okay, hopefully there's a better quote than that, but just as an example. And then the final one is, what should the overall tone of the speech be, right? Should it be inspirational, informative, call to action, or combination? And we're going to say the tone should be comical and inspirational. Okay, so now I'm going to hit enter, and our speechwriter assistant here is going to go do its thing. Again, you can use different models, play with different models. Don't just accept one model for what it is. And again, once the speech comes back, the crispy with the I was that, iteration is super important. So if you don't like parts of it, have it change it up. Say, hey, this part is really good. This part is really bad. Okay, so now it said, thanks for providing the detail. Now it's telling us, hey, this is what we're going to do. Here's the audience. Okay, with this information, I can begin drafting, and we're going to say, yep, yes, great. Write the speech. And talking about tokens, I wrote, yes, great, write the speech. I could have just said, write the speech instead of, yes, great, right? AI doesn't really need our validation from that perspective. So here's the draft that it came up with. Good morning, everyone. It is a true pleasure to be here with you all today. The heartbeat, the lifeblood, the very reason we do what we do here at the university. That's right. I'm talking about you, the students. Now, I know what you're thinking. Here comes another boring speech about how we're the future leaders and the backbone of society. Well, hold on to your laptops, my friends, because this speech is anything but ordinary. In fact, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. You students are not just a future of our. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but as you can see, because of the context we gave it, it made it comical, and it's going to make it inspirational, right? So this is an example of how you can create an AI assistant that can help you with some of the tasks that you do all the time by putting in a really good prompt and using the CRISP method to draft out your prompt and have it saved in an assistant, and then you can call it on any time you need to. You can keep building on it, right? We can, as you can see, here's that speechwriter assistant. I can click the little edit button right next to it, and I can now, maybe I found a fifth question I wanted to ask because it's super critical. I can add that here. I can keep refining this format over and over and over, and generate better content for me, right? In the same way that we use this one, I could have changed the model to, OpenAI O3 and called on the speechwriter, speech assistant as well, and said, write a speech about hard drives. And it would bring up the same questions. Really, I would say write a speech and it'll bring it up. Okay, and in this case, it started writing a speech about content focus. It already pre-filled it based on all the information that we gave it, and we can over here we can modify it and say, hey, on number 4, use this quote. Number 3, use this quote. Do some of those things. All right. That is, in a nutshell, how to use prompts in Comet AI. Hope you found this useful, and I can't wait to see what everyone does and how you use this tool. So there's lots of model. Again, more models are coming. Gemini is coming soon, so stay tuned for that. But you can already hit the ground running and start by creating excellent prompts and storing them into assistants over here, and then calling on them anytime you need, or just chat with AI. And just write if it's a one-time thing, just put your prompt over here, but just use the crisp method. Again, you don't have to use every part of it. Use whatever parts of it that you need to, and refine your prompts. And I hope you have a great day prompting.